Hey there, welcome to my front porch. I'm Daniel Norton. Happy Friday. I'm a photographer here in New York, if you guys don't know that already, and we're going to talk a little bit about confidence. So, this came up the other day. I was talking with my friend, and we were talking about being brave or confident or whatever, moving away from home, going into business, whatever. And one thing he was that when you're young, you're oftentimes you don't know enough not to be confident. And maybe when you're older, sometimes you might be confident, but you're afraid to do things because maybe you know what you can lose, right? So I think that's kind of interesting, and I do know that many of the viewers here are older, right? So if you're risking, right, you've been working a job for 20 years and you want to get into photography and leave your job or whatever you're going to do, that can be very, very daunting. I mean, when I left my job, which was a very good job, when I was 24, I moved with nothing, and I said it's all or nothing. Like, I'm going to be a photographer. I'm just going to do it. And I always had in my mind, well, if worst case scenario, I'll just go home. I'll just go back and live with my parents for a year and get myself back on my feet if I completely flop and lose everything. And I've known people to have done that in my day. Luckily, I did not have to do that because while they would have taken me back, I'm sure that my mother would have made me do way too much yard work. So I'm glad I didn't have to go back and do that. But but the idea is that, like, when you're older, you realize, well, I mean, I have a house, I have a car, I have a family, I have, investments. These things could go away if I screw up. So it becomes a little bit more difficult to be confident in that sense. But then that led us just talking about confidence in general. And I was thinking about the idea that, sometimes people mistake, like, blustery, almost bullies, I hate to use that term, as confident, where I actually have a lot more respect for what I'll call quiet confidence. If you get up and you yell and you push people around, I'm good at photography and I know the universe square law, this is the way you have to do it. 5 things you're doing wrong. This is the right thing. Use my preset. Buy my thing. Those people will do well for a while, but I think after a while we realize with that kind of thing that it's not really worth it, right? Think about how many, like, roll back, if those of you who have been following these things for a while, think about how many of these kind of loudmouth type people have come and gone. The one that you have to do this, you have to buy this. Not all of them. I mean, some of them stick around, obviously. But most of those people that do stick around aren't actually photographers either. They are, spokespeople or whatever, however you want to say. That's another tangent. But anyways, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's a problem with not being a photographer. My point being is that in the actual industry, like, your clients are going to want you to be confident, of course. They want to know that when they hire you, that you'll get the job done, and that you're not going to, like, go, oh, I can't do it, forget it, I'm just going to leave the set and go home. Because that's actually sometimes what happens. You hear these horror stories with, especially newer photographers, where they got a bunch of recognition early on. They used to do this 25... that are below 25, I think it used to be called. It was, I think PDN did it, where it was like these, like, new photographers that were, like, breaking in. And a lot of times you look at if you followed their careers, I mean, some of them became really big photographers, but a lot of them got a big job because they were in this thing and they completely flopped because they weren't ready, So we can be overconfident, right? And we can make that risk. We can be reckless, right? And then again, it doesn't have to be when you're young. It just tends to happen more in that case. I think because, you got less to lose in a lot of sense, so you're more willing to take the risk. But anyways, my point being is that slow and steady wins the race, as they say, right? You should be confident. You should know your skill level, your ability, but also be willing to push it, right? Like, I may never have shot a very certain thing, but if somebody comes to me and says, can you shoot this? I will think to myself, okay, yeah, I mean, I've done this, this, and this. They're similar. I have 2 months to prep for the shoot. I can do test shots. Yes, I can do it. Here's my numbers, right? This is something that we want to do. If it's something that you don't do, then you can just simply say, this is something I don't do. What I do recommend, though, in those cases, and this is another reason why community is great, you should try to recommend those jobs to other people. Some of the very first jobs I got, now this is actually another slight tangent, some of the very first jobs I got as a photographer were photographers who were approached by companies to do jobs that the job was too small for them because I was a photo assistant, right? So they were like, well, I'm not going to do this job for $5,000, but my assistant will, and that was the connection. They weren't afraid that they were going to lose that client. It was just that, listen, this job is too small for me. You know that. I'm normally charging you $20,000. Why I can't do this for $5,000? So that's fine, right? And the same thing is true here. If somebody comes to me, let's say to make their portrait, and they want a very special thing done that I don't do, but I have a friend that does that technique. Let's say I have some, let's say Seth, right? And they want, oh, I want to do this monster, thing or something very specific with this kind of makeup, and I know he's an expert in that. I'm not an expert in that. He is, right? So I might say, you know what? This is not exactly the thing I cover. Let me recommend somebody to you. Because now you're keeping it kind of in the family, and I think that's important, right? Have connections, help them out. The last thing you want, like I hate when I go to a store or something and I say, oh, I'm looking, I'm trying to fix this thing, and they go, I don't know anything about it. The best places are the ones that go, oh yeah, we don't do that here, but you know what? There's actually a store over there that does it. And that will always get me coming back to that first store because they're willing to help you out. You're just like a store as a photographer, as a person, right? Somebody's coming to you for help, right? They need their thing shot. And if you help them by sending them to another photographer, they will remember that. And they will come back to you. And I can tell you because I've experienced these things in life. So get a nice group of photographers together. Be confident, but know what you can do. Don't overpromise, right? What do they say? Underpromise, overdeliver. That's how we want to do it. Don't bully your way into jobs. Don't bully your way into being a photographer. Do it with skill, do it with tact, do it with confidence, and you'll have a long, hopefully successful, definitely successful, right, with confidence career. If you haven't already, go ahead and ring the bell, subscribe, and do all that goodness. Leave some comments below. Let me know if you have anything to say about this subject or other things you want me to talk about, and I'll see you next week.